into these.
Country music isn't all front-porch pickin' and heartfelt ballads. Behind the stage and glossy albums lies a history riddled with scandals, feuds, and epic temper flare-ups. Some artists who shaped the genre with iconic songs also built reputations for being insufferable behind the scenes. Their hits might have topped charts, but their arrogant demands and wild outbursts left scars that never healed. Today we're exposing 21 old-school country stars known for more than just their music. Each faced rumors of jerk behavior, from clashing with label execs to alienating bandmates. Some had fiery tempers driven by addictions, others displayed controlling streaks that forced collaborators away. And let's not forget the shock value of racist lyrics, chaotic onstage meltdowns, or cruel manipulation. Think only new stars cause scandals? Think again. These legends paved the way for controversy long before social media. Buckle up for a fast-paced tour of betrayals, brawls, and backstage chaos. Let's start with the first wave of rebels who found trouble as fast as they found success. Hank Williams Sr. was one of country music's earliest icons, penning classics that still echo across honky-tonk bars worldwide. Yet behind his legendary voice was a tumultuous existence, shaped by alcohol and personal demons. Industry insiders whispered about his unreliability. He'd show up late for gigs if he showed up at all. Some nights, his performance dazzled crowds. Other nights, he was too inebriated to sing. This unpredictable lifestyle eventually took a toll, fueling the notion that the man behind classics like "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry" was far from the ideal colleague or friend. People who admired his brilliance struggled to reconcile that genius with the chaos he unleashed backstage. Johnny Cash, another towering figure, also bore a reputation for early career antics that were anything but saintly. While fans embraced his man-in-black persona, the younger Cash was infamous for drug binges and destroying hotel rooms. He once tore through a motel in a haze, leaving furniture upended and staff frightened. Although he later sought redemption and spiritual clarity, those who crossed paths with him in his wilder years never forgot the rage and reckless behavior that simmered beneath the surface. Even as his legacy grew, whispers persisted. Behind the crusader for the downtrodden lurked a tempestuous artist struggling to stay upright. Then there's Merle Haggard, whose transition from prison inmate to country legend fueled his rough-edged image. Known for his biting honesty and unfiltered words, Merle was never one to back down from a confrontation, whether it was with fellow artists, reporters, or even concert promoters. A short fuse and a willingness to throw verbal punches made him both respected and feared in equal measure. His prison time only added to his tough reputation, demonstrating that his bark had real teeth and anyone who stood in his way would learn that lesson fast. While Hank, Cash, and Merle blazed a trail of unruly behavior, the next wave of stars doubled down with intense addictions and acts of defiance. George Jones was a prime example, infamous for missing shows so often that he earned the nickname No-Show Jones. Struggling with alcoholism and other substances, he regularly put both his career and personal relationships in jeopardy. Forget the squeaky clean image some country singers project. George's offstage life was a tornado of fights, wrecked friendships, and canceled performances. Promoters dreaded booking him, fearing he'd never appear. Fans adored his emotive voice, but many behind the scenes felt betrayed and burnt out by his unreliability. Then came Waylon Jennings, the quintessential outlaw who refused to bend to Nashville's rules. He fought tooth and nail with label executives who tried to mold him into something more mainstream. Instead, Waylon wore his rebellion proudly. Known for snorting cocaine by the fistful during his peak years, he used his addictions and strong will to push back against every attempt at creative control. If a producer insisted he change a lyric, Waylon would storm out. If a show required him to tone down his act, he'd double it. Music executives described him as a brilliant but aggravating figure who wouldn't compromise for anyone. Fans, on the other hand, devoured the rebellious image. He was the living embodiment of an outlaw, blazing trails in both sound and lifestyle. This section underscores a fundamental truth about classic country icons. For some, the same unbreakable spirit that birthed legendary music also birthed legendary problems. Whether it was drowning in whiskey or defying corporate demands, these artists refused to play nice if it meant giving up an inch of their pride. Their stances made for riveting onstage performances, but brutal nightmares offstage. As if addictions and missed gigs weren't enough, some stars stooped to extremes that left even hardened industry veterans in shock. David Allan Coe epitomizes controversy. Mainstream fans might recognize his hits like "You Never Even Called Me By My Name," yet he also penned underground albums brimming with racist and sexist lyrics. Instead of apologizing, he mocked critics and insisted he had every right to say what he wanted. For him, controversy was currency. He'd spin tales of prison stints and criminal pasts that blurred the line between fact and fiction. Though some saw it as an outlaw shtick, others condemned it as unrepentant hatred. Either way, Coe's refusal to soften his rhetoric made him a pariah in certain circles and a hero in others. Then there was Jerry Lee Lewis, who some might think of as a rock and roll rebel, but he had deep country roots. Known for his thunderous piano style, Lewis's violent temper and questionable personal relationships overshadowed his musical genius. Multiple marriages, including one to his underage cousin, sparked an outcry that nearly destroyed his career. He had a pattern of lashing out at band members or bystanders if the slightest thing set him off. Tools and mic stands occasionally flew if he felt disrespected. While his performances dripped with unbridled energy, few were willing to ignore the moral and ethical storms swirling around him. Promoters would book him for the spectacle, but behind every contract lay anxiety about what might combust. By this point, country music had already seen its share of rebels, but these artists took the notion of outrageous to unprecedented heights. From bigoted lyrics to fiery temper tantrums, they showcased a willingness to alienate fans and industry peers for the sake of maintaining their outlaw identities. Whether it was a publicity stunt or genuine madness, the aftermath was always the same: controversy that echoed long after the final encore. Outrageous conduct aside, not all jerk reputations formed in bar fights. Some simmered in boardrooms and backstage halls, where quiet manipulation wielded just as much damage as any loud confrontation. Tammy Wynette, affectionately dubbed the First Lady of country music, carried a history of strong-willed moves that often alienated those around her. Co-workers described her as controlling, a person who demanded perfection from band members and refused to be outshined. While her hits soared, tensions among her circle grew, as she allegedly kept a tight grip on every aspect of her career, often at the expense of collaborators who felt micromanaged. Porter Wagoner was similarly notorious for his controlling nature, particularly regarding Dolly Parton's early career. He served as her mentor, but maintained a significant hold over her creative decisions. Dolly herself eventually broke away, writing the emotional "I Will Always Love You" as a farewell. Rumors swirled that Porter tried to stifle her ambition, worried she'd surpass him in popularity. Indeed, Dolly's subsequent global success proved she had the talent to stand on her own. Yet for years, she had to navigate around Porter's demands, revealing a side of him that was fiercely possessive and intent on calling all the shots. Then there's Charlie Rich, who might be best remembered for torching John Denver's CMA Entertainer of the Year announcement card. Before that outrageous act, he was already known in certain circles for having a moody temperament and diving into alcohol. His drunken rants weren't always public, but insiders claim he'd slam doors and badmouth artists he felt were undeserving. The infamous card burning merely cemented his image as a bully who believed certain performers didn't belong in the genre. Quiet manipulation and subtle sabotage were sometimes overshadowed by these theatrics. But Charlie's behind-the-scenes behavior fueled the fire of his jerk reputation. As country music evolved, certain stars took a more calculated approach to hostility. Buck Owens, for instance, built a reputation as a shrewd businessman, shaping the Bakersfield sound with twangy guitars and a brash style. Yet those close to him claim he often had a cold, calculating way of dealing with colleagues. If a musician in his band wasn't delivering to his standard, he'd cut them without blinking. Under that dazzling smile lurked a strategist who placed business ahead of loyalty. Some accused him of being heartless, but to Buck, it was about running a tight ship and ensuring no one threatened his empire. Then comes Loretta Lynn, an undeniable legend whose fierce spirit helped her break barriers for women in country music. She took on taboo topics and never hesitated to speak her mind. That same bravery, however, sometimes bled into behavior that onlookers deemed abrasive. She'd call people out publicly, whether it was about unfair radio play or behind-the-scenes politics. Her refusal to be silenced won her countless admirers, but also plenty of enemies who thought she was too brash. Detractors whispered that she enjoyed stirring controversy to keep herself in the spotlight. Loretta shrugged off the gossip, forging ahead with bold statements that left no room for compromise. Farron Young turned combative into a personal trademark. Known as the Singing Sheriff, he had a streak of drunken outbursts that often escalated into violent behavior. Tales abound of him throwing punches in bar rooms or lashing out at acquaintances who questioned his authority. His sense of humor could be biting, and when booze took over, he'd lash out unpredictably. The tension he created was exhausting for anyone forced to tiptoe around his volatile moods. While some found him charismatic, others viewed him as an explosive powder keg who left a trail of burned bridges everywhere he went. Feuds in country music are nothing new, but these next artists approached them with an intensity that left colleagues reeling. Conway Twitty had a smooth voice that charmed audiences, but rumors swirled about his domineering attitude when cameras weren't rolling. He allegedly insisted on top billing whenever he toured with another artist, refusing to compromise. Band members spoke of him as a taskmaster obsessed with maintaining an image of perfection. If a note went wrong or a stage cue wasn't followed to the letter, Conway would snap, leaving those around him scrambling to maintain order. Marty Robbins projected a friendly smile on stage, delighting fans with crossover hits and a flair for showmanship. Off stage, however, his competitive side was legendary. Some performers accused him of hogging the spotlight during collaborative events. Marty hated playing second fiddle to anyone, which led to heated arguments about billing, performance order, and setlist lengths. He'd been known to confront fellow stars backstage, making it clear he wouldn't accept anything less than center stage. While supporters admired his work ethic, critics called him hot-tempered and prone to riffs that dragged on unnecessarily. Tom T. Hall, celebrated songwriter behind countless classics, was heralded for his lyrical brilliance. But colleagues noted a distinctly distant and dismissive air about him. When co-writers brought ideas he deemed subpar, he'd brush them off without diplomacy, sometimes leaving them feeling belittled. Rumors swirled that his compliments were rare and his temper flared if deadlines weren't met. Though he didn't often engage in public blowouts, the undercurrent of tension he created was enough to poison collaborations. He was one of those performers whose intellectual prowess demanded respect, but his prickly personality ensured he was never the easiest partner to work with, even if the end result was a masterpiece. Moving forward, some stars inherited these rebellious streaks or cultivated them from the start. Hank Williams Jr. was always measured against his father's towering legacy, and he chose to carve his own path with brash behavior and provocative statements. Whether it was launching politically tinged rants in interviews or making bold personal comments on stage, Bocephus embraced the role of agitator. He'd call people out, express volatile opinions, and then mock anyone who felt offended. While he garnered a devoted following for refusing to bow to political correctness, plenty of industry folks found him infuriating. Rumors circulated that he was impossible to manage, demanding special treatment wherever he went. Lefty Frizzell similarly clashed with industry figures, though his demons centered more on alcoholism than politics. Known for his distinctive vocal style, Lefty's personal troubles overshadowed his artistry at times. Drinking sessions turned into raging parties, culminating in brawls or no-shows that harmed his reputation. Producers labeled him a liability, uncertain if he'd ever arrive to the studio sober enough to record. Fans adored his crooning, but label executives learned to keep a backup plan ready whenever they scheduled time with him. His short feuds and boozy meltdowns led to confrontations with other artists who grew weary of dealing with him. Roger Miller, beloved for his clever wit and novelty songs, also had a quieter but potent arrogance that unsettled associates. Some who worked with him claimed he was quick to dismiss others' ideas, insisting his comedic approach was superior. He'd roll his eyes or walk away if he felt a suggestion was beneath him. Those who collaborated with Miller appreciated his genius, but resented the air of condescension that came along with it. His humor might have thrilled fans, but behind the scenes, his arrogance bred animosity that lingered after the final curtain call. Now we arrive at two legends who pushed every boundary, leaving behind a legacy both lauded and damned. Johnny Paycheck took the outlaw image to heart, living it on and off stage. His massive hit, "Take This Job and Shove It," spoke to the rebellious spirit many fans connected with. But Paycheck's real-life antics were far more extreme. He once landed in prison after shooting a man in an argument, a crime that solidified his reputation as a genuine renegade who didn't just sing about lawlessness, he lived it. Every step of his career was peppered with run-ins with the law, bar fights, and personal grudges that never fully dissolved. For some, he was the ultimate outlaw. For others, he was simply reckless. Finally, there's Willie Nelson, a name so revered that many hesitate to put him on any jerk list. Yet even the red-headed stranger had moments that rubbed people the wrong way. For years, he battled the IRS over unpaid taxes, eventually forcing him to sell off possessions to settle his debt. Behind his laid-back, wise persona was a steadfast belief that he knew best. About finances, about how the industry should be run, about everything. While most collaborators admire Willie's generosity and activism, some insiders quietly complain that he can be stubborn and dismissive if challenged. During the peak of his career, he demanded significant control over every aspect of his tours and recordings, occasionally sidelining others' input. And though Willie's controversies were mild compared to others, they were enough to make certain peers roll their eyes when he breezed into the room, confident that no one would dare question him. Each of these 21 artists left an indelible mark on country music, shaping it through sheer talent, but also reminding us that fame can warp even the most creative souls. Their willingness to push boundaries propelled them to stardom and forever enshrined their reputations as industry troublemakers. From Hank Williams Sr.'s alcohol-fueled absences to Willie Nelson's stubborn streak, these 21 old-school country stars didn't just sing about life's complications, they lived them. Their music carved new paths, yet behind that artistry lay bruised egos, burned bridges, and shocking scandals. Some, like David Allan Coe, courted controversy with bigoted lyrics, while others, such as Tammy Wynette, nurtured underhanded power dynamics that stifled collaborators. Whether it was Charlie Rich burning a fellow artist's recognition or Porter Wagoner wrestling for control, the stories run the gamut from brazen to heartbreaking. Ultimately, these tales beg the question, does a bit of chaos fuel creative genius, or does it merely tarnish legacies? Perhaps a mix of both. One thing's certain, the mythic aura of country music is made richer and darker by these real-life dramas. Let us know how you feel about these iconic but flawed figures, and keep this legacy in mind next time their songs hit your playlist. Yet these complexities also remind us that artistry often emerges from turmoil. The songs remain timeless, even if their creators walked paths marked by drama, conflict, and relentless ambition. Some fans defend them passionately. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.